Hello, all. Welcome to the final part of July current affairs for UPSC 2024. If you want to find the first part, I have created a playlist. Make sure you watch that. With respect to Jagannath Temple, consider the following statements. The temple holds significance for the followers of Gaudiya Vaishnavism, whose founder is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. The temple resembles the structural and sculptural richness and fluidity of the Odia style of temple architecture. The Bhil Savar tribal priest performs the worship in the Jagannath temple. So we have to see how many of the statements given above is or are correct. Gaudiya Vaishnavism was founded by Chaitanya Mahaprabhuji, and yes, the Lord of the world, the Jagannath temple, plays a special significance here. So first statement is definitely correct. The temple resembles the sculptural richness and fluidity of the Odia style of temple. Specifically, if I have to point out, is Kalinga style of architecture. The Bhil Savar tribal priest. That means the priest who belongs to this particular tribe performs the worship in the Jagannath temple. So first is correct, second is also correct, and also the third one is correct. That means all three will be the correct answer. Jagannath temple, that is situated in Puri, Odisha, is witnessing a huge investment of more than rupees for 200 crore in order to do special developmental projects. And it's a Vaishnavite temple. It was built in 10th century. From 10th century onwards, the present structure was built by Anantavarman Chodganga Deva. He belonged to the Eastern Ganga dynasty. So remember that Eastern Ganga dynasty. These kind of very specific things can also be asked in your examination. The Bhil Savar tribal priest performs the worship in the Jagannath temple. Unlike other Hindu temples, the image of Jagannath is made up of wood, and that is also replaced every 12 to 19 years. Other very important Vaishnavite saints who are related to this temple are Ramanujacharya, Madhavacharya, Nimbarkacharya, and Vallabhacharya along with Ramananda. The temple holds very special significance for Gaudiya Vaishnavism, whose founder is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Other thing that could be asked, who founded Gaudiya Vaishnavism? You have to remember, I could have put these many names under them. Now this is the kind of temple architecture which the Jagannath temple follows. As you can see, it has a Rekha Diwal. Also, as you see, it has a Jagmohan, the Bhog Mandap, and the Vimana. Okay, let's move ahead. Consider the following. Exploring submarine ports underwater, deep mining from underwater vehicles and robots, krill fishery from Southern Ocean, development of ocean climate change and advisory services. How many of the above is our mission or aim under the deep ocean mission? Under the deep ocean mission only, we will have the Samudrayan, guys. So remember that. That's for sure. So under the deep ocean mission, we are going to have these many aims and projects, not only one but multiple. We will explore submarine ports underwater. This is very important from the perspective of defense, guys. Also, deep mining will be done underwater. Vehicles and robots will be used, for which Samudrayan will be employed. Krill fishery will be done from the Southern Ocean area, and development of ocean climate change and advisory services for better disaster management will also be there. 1, 2, 3, 4. All are a aim. All are a or an aim of the particular thing that we were talking about. So all four is going to be the correct answer. India has actually identified 11 potential sites for the exploration of hydrogen sulfide as a part of the deep ocean mission only, which is a multi-institutional. Many institutions are a part of it. It is launched by the government of India. Your job in the comment section is to provide me the names of the institutions that I'm talking about for the deep ocean mission. To explore the deep ocean for resources and develop deep sea technologies for sustainable use of technology and sustainable use of oceans basically. Aim is to help India to achieve over rupees 100 billion blue economy through its ocean resources. Remember, it is 100 billion and not 1000 billion or 1 billion. So sometimes UPSC is going to confuse you with data, and it will be done in the Central Indian Ocean Basin. Okay, this region. Let's move ahead. These are the various aims of the DOM, Deep Ocean Mission. Deep sea mining will be done through underwater vehicles and robotics, asserting exclusive rights to explore polymetallic nodules from seabed. Over 75,000 square kilometer of areas in the international water. So you have to remember that where are we going to get polymetallic nodules? Sometimes these kind of data-based questions UPSC loves. So 75,000 square kilometers of areas in international water. This is our right and we are going to claim it. Estimated polymetallic nodules resource potential is 380 million million tons. Development of ocean climate change advisory services, deep ocean survey and exploration, energy from the ocean and offshore based desalinization so that clean energy can be looked at. All these kind of things will be asked. And also these polymetallic nodules contain, the most of them contains in a lot amount is manganese. So this is also a very important fact that you have to remember. All right. So India with the Samudrayan, which will be India's first manned ocean mission, it has been launched and it will make India to join the elite club of USA, Russia, Japan, France, and China. So you have to remember how many countries have sent a manned ocean mission. All right. So USA has done it, Russia, Japan, France, and China, and now India will also be there. Part of this is all a part of the rupees 6,000 crore deep ocean mission. We will send 3 persons to a depth of about 6,000 meters. So you remember meter, don't make it kilometer. Okay, that's not possible right now. Also rupees 6,000 crore. So there are a lot of sixes that you have to remember. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sixth country will be India. Thereafter 6,000 crore deep ocean mission. The depth will be 6,000 meters. Okay, so these kind of small things are very noticeable that you have to answer. Consider the following statements. Statement 1 says a positive IOD event, Indian Ocean Dipole. I am talking about Indian Ocean Dipole. Okay, a positive IOD event often develops at times of El Nino, while a negative one is developing with La Nina. During El Nino, the Pacific side of Indonesia is warmer than normal, because of which the Indian Ocean also gets warmer. So we have to choose the correct answer using the following codes. So first statement is definitely correct. I will definitely make a video on the entire concept of El Nino. Okay, so you have to remember, if I will make a video, I will tell you everything that is related to El Nino, Indian Ocean Dipole. So please do watch that video as well. But for this statement, you have to notice this first statement is definitely correct. When there is an El Nino event, a positive Indian Ocean Dipole occurs, a negative one when La Nina is there. During El Nino event, the Pacific side of Indonesia gets colder actually and not warmer. That means the second statement is incorrect. So only statement 1 is correct, but statement 2 is not correct. This is a really long concept, but let's see it with the help of this particular, we can say an image. So in normal times, what happens, that trade winds are so strong from east to west that they get this warmer water shifted towards Indonesia and Australia. And because of that, cold upwelling happens. Upwelling of cold water happens near Peru in South America. So this is Eastern Pacific Ocean that is getting colder in normal years. But when it comes to El Nino event, this region remains warmer because of the weakening of trade winds. The warm water is unable to get here. That means this area remains colder and this remains warmer, giving rise to El Nino event and also affecting the Indian Ocean Dipole. So a positive IOD event often develops at times of El Nino, while a negative one is La Nina. During El Nino, the Pacific side of Indonesia is cooler than normal, because of which the Indian Ocean also gets cooler. Here it is written that it gets warmer. That's not correct. All right. So statement C is going to be correct. Let's move ahead and talk about the next question. With respect to the Prevention of Sexual Harassment Act of 2013, consider the following statements. It is a gender neutral act. It defines sexual harassment in the workplace and creates a mechanism to redress complaints. So which of the statements given above is or are correct? It's not a gender neutral act. Means if any man has to complain for sexual harassment under this act, that cannot be done. It can be done only by a woman. That means it's not a gender neutral act. So first statement is incorrect. But it does define sexual harassment in workplaces and also gives for Vishaka guidelines. Okay, so this is definitely correct. Second is correct. First is not correct. 2 only will be the correct answer. Provisions of the POSH Act of 2013 also applies to all national sports federation. POSH Act implements Vishaka guidelines. It defines sexual harassment in the workplace and also a mechanism in order to redress the complaints. What constitutes a sexual harassment? If anybody makes a physical contact which is not appropriate and sexual advances are there. Also, a demand or request for sexual favors, making sexual colored remarks such as, why are you wearing this lipstick? That lipstick looks good, but this doesn't, or something like that. Or you look much better without makeup, something like this. Showing pornography and any other unwelcome physical, verbal, or non-verbal conduct of a sexual nature. For this, internal complaints committee can be made. This is with specific to organizations. Every organization can have their own internal complaints committee, and they can look into the matter whenever a complaint arises. Other one is local area committee. This is at the level of much more, you can say, diversity and much larger scale if we compare it to ICC. So both are there. Vishaka guidelines are such as workspaces should have complaint committee and a counselor. Complaint procedure should be time bound, not kept forever. Women are not to be discriminated in any form at workplace during this process. Committee must be headed by a woman. You remember the words are must. Maintenance of confidentiality of the victim. With respect to antimicrobial resistance, consider the following statements. It is defined as a microorganism's resistance to an antimicrobial drug that was once able to treat an infection by the microorganism, and now it has become a superbug. Isoniazid and rifampicin are the drugs to which TB has become resistant. Greater access to over-the-counter antibiotic drugs in developing countries is a factor contributing to antimicrobial resistance. So we have to see the not correct one. Sometimes what happens, UPSC can confuse us with not correct statements. So what is antimicrobial resistance? It is a resistance that certain pathogens develop. That means if one wants to be killed, or if one has to be killed by some drugs, but now the pathogen is not killed by it, this is a resistance. This is a kind of shield that a pathogen has developed against that drug. That drug could have been used to treat that pathogen, to kill that pathogen, but it is now not possible. And this is defined as a microorganism resistance to an antimicrobial drug that was once able to treat an infection by that microorganism, and now it has become a superbug. Such pathogens are known as superbugs. So first is definitely correct. And now for TB also, people generally what do they do? They go for TB, you can say, treatment, but they do not complete it. So if you are, in any sort of antibiotic treatment and you're not completing it, then what happens? That pathogen, virus, or anything, they can develop resistance to it. So yes, isoniazid and rifampicin, they have developed drug resistance to it. For which disease? For TB. So second is also correct. And the problem is that people generally do not want to go to the doctor. Everybody wants their children to be a doctor, but they do not want to visit the doctor whenever need be. So they go to the normal pharmaceutical shops, they tell these symptoms, and what happens? The pharmacist tells them that please take this antibiotic, and they start taking it. So there is a greater access to over the counter antibiotic drugs, which is also leading to antimicrobial resistance, because it is not possible, or it may not be possible, for one drug to treat everything, right? So people do a generalist view of that. So first is correct, second is correct, third is also correct. So how many are not correct? None are not correct. None will be the correct answer. Now, if we talk about cefepime and zidebactam, it is an Indian antibiotic which is showing promising result against extensively drug-resistant Pseudomonas aeruginosa, which is a highly drug-resistant infection. Also, it is mostly acquired in hospitals. What is Pseudomonas aeruginosa? It's a gram-negative bacteria, and it is associated with many infections which are acquired in hospitals. As I told you, what are antimicrobial resistance? Any pathogen which develops resistance to antibiotics, antivirals, antifungal, antiparasitic medication. Okay, and multi-drug resistant TB is something which is developing really fast. That means TB now cannot be treated with most of the drugs that we have it right now. Most of them also include isoniazid and rifampicin. Moving on, if one is getting too much over prescription of antibiotics, now that can lead to antimicrobial resistance. If patient do not finish treatment, this can give rise to mutation. If overuse of antibiotics in livestock and fish farming happens, it comes back into our ecosystem and helps the new pathogens, the old pathogens and the new pathogens, to be better in handling such resistance and antibiotics, lack of new antibiotics because we do not have a lot of study over it, lack of hygiene and poor sanitation, and poor infection control in hospitals and clinics. These are the many causes of antimicrobial resistance. It is one of the largest glaciers in the Suru River Valley in Ladakh. It is located in the Zanskar Ranges, Western Himalaya. Its melting could give rise to three glacial lakes, which could be a potential source of glacial lake outburst floods in the Himalayas, which glacier is being referred to in the paragraph given above. Zemu, Machoi, Parkachik, or Siachen. The correct answer from this is Parkachik Glacier. Let's talk about it. Melting of the Parkachik Glacier, which is situated here in the Zanskar Range, as you can see, it can give rise to three glacial lakes. What is a glacial lake? A lake which is formed because of the melting of the glaciers. And the glacial lakes can be formed because of excessive heating. Moraines can form a kind of bridging and a kind of dam. And here the melted water from the glacier, it collects. After a period of time when glaciers continue on melting, this puts a pressure on these moraines which have formed a dam kind of thing. And thereafter, once they burst, too much deluge can take place. So GLOFs are also a problem, and this could be given a rise through Parkachik Glacier. Parkachik Glacier is one of the largest glaciers in the Suru River Valley in Ladakh, and it's located in the Zanskar Range of Western Himalayas. Moving on, who comprises the G20 Troika for the year 2024? What's a Troika? A Troika is kind of a policy basket. Whenever a country makes a policy through G20, they want it to continue. So they look forward towards the next president, and the next president looks forward towards the next president in order for the constitution of and continuation of a policy. And through G20, whenever any country makes a policy, that has to be implemented by different presidencies. So G20 Troika is a basket of the three countries, which includes the past president of the G20, that was India for 2023, Brazil, which is the current one, and for 2025, it's South Africa. So IBSA, India, Brazil, and South Africa, they are currently in the Troika. Okay, so yes, if we talk about G20, we have these many countries, which includes the G7, Russia, and other countries. Also, the African Union. The African Union recently joined under India's presidency, which itself is a big union of 55 African countries. Okay, now for the year 2023, the Troika was Indonesia, India, and Brazil. For the next year, it will be, for this year, it will be India, Brazil, and South Africa. So, as you see, that all these three are a part of the developing world, the global south. That is why policies are going to be very global south oriented. The G20 summit is actually held annually under the leadership of rotating presidency. The first one was held in 2008 in Washington, D.C. The US is the only country, very important fact, that has hosted the G20 summit twice in 2008 and 2009. 2023 G20 summit is India's first G20 summit as a host country. India invited Bangladesh, Egypt, Mauritius, Netherlands. Bangladesh was the only neighbor to be invited by India under this. Also, Nigeria, Oman, Singapore, Spain, and UAE were also guests. Sometimes you can also get questions for guest countries. So remember, the theme was One Earth, One Family, and One Future. With respect to hydrogen, choose the incorrect statement. It never occurs freely on the earth. It is highly flammable. Green hydrogen releases carbon byproduct. It is an energy carrier and not an energy source. That's very true that hydrogen is highly flammable and it doesn't occur freely on the earth. It releases carbon byproduct. No, that's not true. It's a clean source of energy, right? So when we are using hydrogen, when we are making hydrogen using renewable energy, that is known as green hydrogen. So C is incorrect because of that. As we had to select the incorrect one, C is going to be the correct answer. International Conference on Green Hydrogen happened in Delhi for the year 2023. It was organized by Ministry of New and Renewable Energy. Hydrogen is colorless, odorless, highly flammable. Also, it is non-toxic. It's the lightest and most abundant element on Earth, but it doesn't occur freely. It has to be actually produced using other sources of energy. That is why it is an energy carrier, not an energy source. A hydrogen is clean molecule. The process of extracting it is very energy intensive. Green hydrogen is a hydrogen that is produced by the electrolysis of water. When we use electricity from renewable sources such as wind or solar, and that gives us zero CO2 emission. Purple or pink hydrogen is a hydrogen that is produced by electrolysis using nuclear power. Turquoise energy is hydrogen produced by thermal splitting of methane. Instead of CO2, solid carbon is produced over here. Hydrogen is when hydrogen is produced from fossil fuels, where CO2 is captured and either stored or repurposed so that it doesn't get emitted in the atmosphere. So this is also clean. Gray is the unclean one, and this is the most common form of hydrogen production. Okay, brown is when hydrogen is extracted from coal using gasification. White when hydrogen is produced as a byproduct of industrial process. This is also referred to as hydrogen occurring in its rare or natural form. Yellow is one when hydrogen is produced by electrolysis using grid electricity from various sources. That could be done either through renewable or fossil fuels. Moving on. Green hydrogen, as I told you, is produced by splitting of water into hydrogen and oxygen. And this electricity comes from renewable energy like wind or solar. That is why it doesn't produce any carbon byproducts because it is using renewable energy. And water vapor are the only two byproducts. Moving on, there are many challenges because it takes a lot of money to transport renewable energy required in greenhouse production. For that, we need infrastructure, which is also not very good. There is a limited amount of technology in India to do it. So it has a low carbon footprint. It is light, storable for a long period of time, and energy dense. Lot of energy is there. Moving on, we also have the National Green Hydrogen Mission, which is going to give us 60 to 100 gigawatt electrolyzer capacity, 125 gigawatt capacity for GH2 generation, green hydrogen generation, and also associated transmission network. Because once we get the energy from green hydrogen, we have to transmit as well. So total outlay which is approved is 19,744 crores. Sometimes this can also be asked. This is a practice question for you. After that, I have certain more news for prelims orientation. Please stay with me. With respect to RBI's digital payment index, consider the following statements. It's an annual index that measures the level of digitalization in payments nationwide. It consists of five main parameters, with customer centricity having the highest weightage. Digital payments saw a year-on-year growth of over 13% at the end of March 2023. You have to tell me which of the statements given above is or are correct in the comment segment. Let's move on and talk about this question. Henley Passport Index. Here, India has secured 80th rank. Henley and partners rank all the world's passports. The number of destinations their holders can access without a prior visa helps us getting a rank. That means if any country can give access to number of destinations without having prior visa, then that's good. India has climbed 7 places from 87 last year. So remember this. Singapore continues to occupy the top position. Japan, which held the top position for 5 years, dropped to third. Remember this. Syria, Iraq, and Afghanistan have the weakest passports. Syria is 101st, Iraq is 102nd, and Afghanistan is 103rd. Thereafter, Pakistan is on the 100th spot. Moving on. During phase third human trial, the live chikungunya vaccine has shown high efficacy. The vaccine was able to replicate in the body without causing severe illness. That's good. Because when live vaccines are introduced, it's just like normal infection, the actual infection that happens. So if a person gets too much ill, that's not a good sign. The live vaccines are commonly used against measles, mumps, rubella, smallpox, and yellow fever. Chikungunya is actually a mosquito-borne viral disease which is caused by the chikungunya virus, which is an RNA virus. These are the viruses whose genetic material, instead of being DNA, is RNA, and it is single-stranded. It's a nucleic acid which is present in all living cells that has structural similarities to the DNA. It has high mutation rate, high genetic diversity, and also they can highly replicate. Influenza viruses, HIV, SARS-CoV-2, measles virus, and Ebola virus are such RNA viruses. So remember this. Vectors for different viruses can be Asian tiger mosquito and yellow fever mosquito, which can also transmit dengue and Zika virus. These mosquitoes bite primarily during daylight hours. Primarily and only are different. So remember, not only but primarily. Moving on. Let's talk about the Guillain-Barré syndrome. Peru has actually declared a national health emergency due to Guillain-Barré syndrome. This is a rare neurological disorder where the body starts thinking that its own peripheral nerve cells are a problem. And when that happens, tingling occurs. Okay. So this kind of question could be asked: which country has declared a national health emergency due to Guillain-Barré syndrome, which is also becoming a common symptoms after COVID-19. So thank you so much for watching. If you like this channel, please do subscribe. Make sure you are also a subscriber to my Telegram channel so that you can get the PDF. Next, I'm going to come up with August current affairs compilation for the year 2023 that you can use for 2024. Thank you so much.